an honor to be here at rewirEd. I want to first start by thanking the rewirEd team for all of the work that's gone into putting on such a successful summit at COP28. We're here for the launch of the BRACE initiative. And I want to start by sharing a recent study that I was looking at that really stuck with me. And it found that there is one very powerful and very effective motivation to act on climate change. It's love. Love for our children. We're facing an intergenerational imperative to stop the destruction of their birthright, which is a healthy environment. One of GPE's youth leaders said it best at the World Children's Day last month, Valentine Mugun-Chepkwech. She was saying to us, we are not the inheritors of a broken world. We are the builders of a new world, a world where humanity and nature coexist, and I believe that with every cell of my body. And I know that only education can make that reality. That's why I'm a mom of 2 beautiful girls, but I've never been more hopeful than I am today standing here at this podium. And I'm hopeful because we are launching today here at rewirEd the world's largest investment for green and safe schools. With the Green Climate Fund, and this is their first major child-focused investment, and also with Save the Children, the Global Partnership for Education will co-finance $70 million for climate-resilient education around the world. We're really honored, first of all, to partner with the governments of Cambodia, Tonga, and South Sudan in this effort. We're building on the many years of efforts that they have already been making to try to build resilience into their education systems. But we're now launching a huge initiative to help them construct climate resilient and green schools, to help integrate climate change into curriculum, and to provide early warning systems to communities through school networks. As the first movers for this initiative across 3 regions, these countries will pave the way for the rest of us, demonstrating what climate finance can do for children. Every year, climate events disrupt tens of millions of children's learning. And the average number of disasters, which has doubled over the last 20 years from 200 a year to 400 a year, well, it's going to increase another 320% over the next 2 decades. So this country-led effort is urgent. And schools are at the front lines of the climate emergency. They are literally touching every community and every family around the world while we face the greatest existential crisis we've ever known. So I'm most hopeful because this initiative is just a start. We plan to support another 20 countries that are the most climate vulnerable around the world to access a pipeline of grants to make their schools greener and safer. While the largest education and climate funds are coming together for the first time, thanks to the leadership of our common partner, Save the Children, we cannot do this alone. Our ambition to ensure comprehensive, safe, and green schools for every child in every country calls for all of us to step up. We need more coordination, cooperation, and alignment across all of our partners. We need to draw on cross-sectoral expertise. We need to reinforce nationally owned and defined strategies and put the well-being and voice of children and youth at the center of our climate and education efforts. We need to do this not only for this generation, but for the next 7 generations of children. So that is why I am hopeful. Thank you.
$70 million investment will help governments worldwide build safer and greener schools, embed climate change in school curriculum, and warn schools about climate events and improve early action in 3 early mover countries, Cambodia, South Sudan, and Tonga, while developing a pipeline of projects to scale up across another 20 countries.
We know that children are the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change while being the least responsible for its causes. This initiative will help 4 million school children become safer and more resilient. We're proud to partner to help the education sector adapt to the impacts of climate change and keep children safe and learning. It's a landmark announcement and the first major climate finance investment in education.
This is just the start. The needs are enormous and we are ready to respond, but we cannot do it alone. The Global Partnership for Education, the Green Climate Fund and Save the Children call on governments, partners and donors to join us to raise ambition on reaching the most vulnerable children and youth via education and empower them in our common fight against climate change.
That's working now. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. It's delighted to be here today. My name is Nick Ireland, and I'm the Director of Climate Change for Save the Children. This is, as we heard, I have a distinguished panel here with me today that I'll introduce, and then we're going to have a bit of a question and answer session around this new initiative, BRACE. So with me on the stage, starting on the other side, is the Director of Finance for the Ministry of Education in Tonga, Director Manu Akoola. Beside Dr. Manu is the Undersecretary Taida Meas of the Kingdom of Cambodia. And then here to her right is Bapon Fakhruddin from the Green Climate Fund. Great to have you here, Bapon. And to my left here, Salira Haziz, a youth representative for the GPE from Tanzania. As you heard about this initiative, it is a first of its kind. I'm going to start with the director, Manu from, I'm going to start with Undersecretary Taida. We know what the science tells us in Cambodia. There will be many and some severe impacts of climate change on the country. This initiative is all about supporting ministries of education, but of course in every country, the responsibility of looking at national plans for climate change is the Ministry of Environment, such as that you're representing here today. My question to you is, how can you see the Ministry of Youth Education and Sports with the Ministry of Education in Cambodia best supported by your ministry, but also contribute to the work of your ministry in bringing education into the policy environment for climate change in the context of Cambodia?
So, good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor and pleasure to participate in this event for financing climate resilient school system and deliver some idea in this side event in COP28. And on behalf of the Royal Government of Cambodia, also representative from Ministry of Environment, indeed would like to express my sincere gratitude to the host, delegate and team for making this important agenda, particularly to discuss how do Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport best support by and contributing the effort of the Ministry of Environment to tackle climate change. Actually, Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport Cambodia, we have a strong collaboration and we working together a lot And we also have a MOU together, especially in the field of environmental education. And we also organize the Eco School Guideline. Eco School Guideline in Cambodia is designed as a reference and national standard for selecting best eco school in Cambodia. And this guideline also support every school effort for environmental awareness raising through all forms of education to students and community. There are 4 main criteria to recognize of eco school. One, school have to have a policy and administration on environment. Second, teaching module and learning activity about environment in school and surrounding community. Third is environmental facility and practice. And fourth, partnership and community outreach. So this proves that teaching model play very important role to make our young generation understand how to adapt the climate change. So if we turn back to our project, as the first large-scale project supported by GCF and GPE for climate resilience for the education sector, it will be directly reach 4 million children and young people as beneficiary and partner in climate adaptation action. Cambodia has ratified that Paris Agreement and it implementing Cambodia update nationally determined contribution, Cambodia's Sustainable Development Goal, and other national development priority in alignment with the Pentagonal Strategy Phase 1. The overall Pentagonal Strategy mission is to safeguard and nurture hard-gain peace and to accelerate national development to achieve the milestone of becoming high-income status by 2050. This strategy has set out 5 strategic Pentagonal, including 1, human capital development, 2nd, economic diversification and competitiveness enhancement, 3rd, development of private sector and employment, and 4th, resilient, sustainable and inclusive development, and 5th, development of digital economic and society. So, Cambodia potential activity under CGF and GPE as a component, the outcome associated with this component is that the education sector and at national and subnational level is target country is more resilient to the impact of climate change. This component will support that 3 target countries to implement relevant comprehensive school safety framework activity. As we have in the project, we have 4 main output. So in 2021, Cambodia has only the 2nd least developing country in the world to submit a long-term strategy for carbon neutrality with a 2050 target. It is taking decisive active action toward a long-term vision for a low-carbon development pathway and to ensure that coherence of short-term climate action with long-term climate goals aligned with long-term finance. The division of the Royal Government of Cambodia is Climate and Education Sector Initiative submitted by Save the Children Australia as a human capital development of Pentagon strategy. Environmental target of clean, green and sustain is our circular strategy on environment. And step up decarbonization effort in the line with Cambodia long-term strategy for carbon neutrality. So finally, the way forward, I would like to suggest Save of Children Australia have to work closely with Ministry of Environment for our smooth and faster process and successful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's great. We really look forward to seeing how the Ministry of Environment will continue to work with the Ministry of Youth and Sport in Cambodia,
yes.
and how you can support one another and the role that this project will be able to play in further linking the agendas of the Ministry of Education with the Ministry of Environment for the benefit, of course, of the whole of
Sure,
society in Cambodia?
Actually, as I mentioned in my speech, Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Education, Youth and Sport, we are strong collaboration and work very closely on environmental education, especially for school, student, and teacher. Yes.
Fantastic. So let me move on to our colleague from Tonga, Dr. Manu. You're obviously in a key position in the Ministry of Education. As Undersecretary Taida had said, this is a fairly large project and it will bring in new resources. Sadly, we know that Tonga is no stranger to climate change. The small island states around the world are at the forefront of climate change, and often what this drives is early moving and innovation and different practices. But from your unique perspective of being responsible for the finances within the Ministry of Education, both domestic and international, what are your recommendations to us, to this project, to make things easier for you and your team and your department, so that the climate finance and education finance that comes internationally into Tonga can have the greatest impact with the least burden on, I'm sure you're already stretched, finance department within the Ministry of Education?
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Big Maro Lele from the Kingdom of Tonga. Thank you, Nick, for the opportunity. Yes, as you have mentioned, how we can look at the whole process and the system that we have to work through to try and get things on the ground as soon as possible. Currently, we have the World Bank project of around 62 million USD. And that money all goes towards the improving school infrastructure, retrofitting, and so as reconstructions of damaged schools. Our latest cyclone was in 2018, and there was another one in 2020. As you mentioned, yes, we are the second most vulnerable countries in the world to natural disasters such as cyclone, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and so forth. So what the World Bank did 6-7 years ago, I think, way back in 2016-17, they did a full assessment of our school infrastructures, both government and non-government schools, and they came up with a list of schools that they reckoned that it should be retrofitted or renovated, and some schools that needs to be rebuilt because of poor structures. And that project now started towards the end of last year, is currently underway. So they came up with a list, they call it the risk-based schools, a list of almost 80 schools that needs to be retrofitted or reconstructed. The funding that I mentioned earlier by the World Bank is only enough to cover some of the schools, not the full list. I think it's 35 or 38 schools with that 62 million USD. So what I'm thinking, this PRAISE project, the funding already mentioned by Sarah is 70 million USD. We are yet to sit down and see how are we going to distribute that funding towards the three countries, Cambodia, South Sudan, and Tonga. But what I'm thinking, to make things easier for us and to make things happen as quickly as we can, because we have no time to wait. We need to act now. What about if we consider using the World Bank project? They've already done the assessment of all our schools, and they have this list, and the funding that they provide us can only cover a certain number of schools in that list. right? So with the funding project, why not just extend the list further down? I mean, with how many schools that we could cover with the PRAISE project funding? We don't need to repeat the whole process of assessing our schools, because it's already been done by the World Bank. I know that recently we've been told that we can access the preparation fund to help us with our project proposal to be submitted within a 2 years timeline. And probably looking at another 4 years before we can have full implementation of the projects. To me, I don't think that we should go through that if we consider that project, which is currently underway, and use that to help us make things easier to us, so as to the donor partners, and to actually get things on the ground happening. Because, you know, we kind of appreciate the approach that the World Bank had done this time. In the past, I mean, to be frankly, it's a rather reactive approach that they apply. We wait for the cyclone to hit, so whatever infrastructure that have been damaged, then they come in with their funding and do the renovation and the reconstruction. But this time, with the project currently underway, they are taking a much more proactive approach. They come in, they don't have to wait for the cyclone or whatever form of disasters. They don't have to wait until they hit. They come and do the assessments, whatever schools that, you know, that needs to be renovated or needs to be rebuilt if the structure is not that sound. We do it now. We don't have to wait for the cyclone to hit.
So what I'm hearing from you there really is you have systems and process in place and is to build on them, not to replicate, not to start again from scratch. I think one of the really good things about working with the Green Climate Fund and the GPE is they're both country-led mechanisms. They're both about supporting countries bottom up, and we're a vehicle to come in and to help that agenda. But what I'm hearing from you really is it's not just about those donors, it's also about what else is happening, what else can be built on, what else can be used to springboard to get things moving quicker, more efficiently, not wasting resources, repeating work that's already been done.
Absolutely, yeah. But how possible that can be, I think it's up to us to further discuss how we can imagine the funding from Save the Children or GPE to match the two with the World Bank, and then so that we can tap into their system and just use the assessment that they have already done, just go down further the list. If they covered the number 1 to number 35, we can just extend from 36, and it depends on how much we can cover with the funding. I'm sure we're not going to cover the whole 80 schools, but yeah, I think that's something that we can look at. If there's going to be additional funding to cover the whole list, that'll be fantastic, but yeah.
Thank you very much. I think with that, I'll segue over to Bapon, the GCF, and I'm delighted, Bapon, that you're on the stage with us here, because Bapon was part of the original team that was conceptualizing the idea of doing this some time ago. So fantastic to have you here. What I'd like to ask you from the perspective of the GCF is, in the first GCF1, the first 4-year strategy period, there was really no reference to education at all in that strategy period. And we've gone from very little or no reference to education to this great initiative coming up. So I'd really be keen to hear is what changed inside the GCF. How did you go from 0 to 100 on education? And potentially, what does it mean for the next strategy period of the GCF, which starts on January 1st, 2024?
Thanks. That's a very important question, and I can still actually remember this is maybe the month that we started the discussion with the CFO from GPE when they visited actually in our office, the first discussion we led. And obviously this is not from the moral point of view that GCF actually like to invest to the children or the school children. It's actually more on the strategic planning, because as Sarah also mentioned that actually we don't need to give something which is broken or better for them to start on. Rather actually we need to do a co-creation, co-development, so that they can actually not only just beneficiary for the climate action, but they can actually do a co-creation and co-developed the engagement for better future for them. And looking at that perspective, we are looking for a more systematic approach, because if as a GCF we go one by one country, it may take us another 30 to 40 years to implement project enhancing the school children. And also we were trying to look at, based on our lessons learned from GCF 1, that a school children is not only just school children. A school is like a heart of a village or a community, which not only serves the education, but also it serves as a shelter. It serves as a symbolic, a critical infrastructure for that particular society. And how we actually ensure that actually the community itself is connected with the school is more resilient, as well as actually the interconnectivity are all actually interlinked. And on that perspective, we are looking for a partner who could be our suitable partner for that. And we are actually quite glad that the discussion actually happened on the right time, at the right process, with the GPE, with the Save the Children. We are able to actually bring up those kind of discussion in, and also with the country's support, we are able to package something that could be demonstrable for the other countries, that hey, the way, what could be a systemic approach bring a more sustainable future for our school children, but also that would help them to ensuring a resilience school facilities. And that was a tremendous that Save the Children come up with at that time, the Climate Resilience School, which again actually talks about more of the interlinkage as well as integrated approach. I think based on from those perspectives, we really thought that we need to be forefront to supporting this kind of initiatives so that the children can actually lead the future. And so that actually I don't say, or I don't actually blame for my children that, hey, what you did is not good for me. So I can say that, hey, let us do together so that you can actually know what is going to be happen for you and how you need to be improve your things. That's the main motivation for us.
Fantastic. And it's great that the GCF is looking at this. Of course, climate finance is for all people in the country, and traditionally, or in the early days of climate finance, there's probably a bias towards agriculture, WASH, and some of the poster child of climate change, so moving and looking broader across other sectors. And as we've heard many times today, for those of you who've been here at the rewirEd Summit, I mean, education is not only about making the education more resilient to the impacts of climate change so that children are in school and learning, but it's also about how can that learning build a culture and a society of understanding and abilities that will help to adapt to the unavoidable impacts of climate change that we will all be facing and now into the future. Fantastic. So look, we're going to slightly change segments here. We're going from the panel discussion on to, we thought it would be a good idea. We've got Salah here. I haven't missed you. You're the star of the show, of course, our youth representative. But rather than hearing from me, we thought on this last segment here, we'll have Bapon from our donor, from the Green Climate Fund, to have a dialogue with the GPE's youth representative, so the representative of the other donor, around what this all means for children and for youth. And so I'll hand over to you two.
Thank you so much, Alan. Is
Nick.
that your surname?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to appreciate this opportunity to represent a majority of youth who are not able to maybe be here at the COP, but also stand here at this stage. So thank you so much, and congratulations, Dr. Farquhar.
Yeah.
Fakhruddin.
Yeah.
Okay, apologies.
Thank you
for that. Okay. Moving from 0 to 100 is not, from 0 to 100 to support education and funding climate resilient school system is not something easy. So I would also like to take this opportunity to appreciate that on behalf of all other children, school children in my country and even in the world. when we talk about climate resilient school systems, I'll be speaking in the perspective of involving youth, as we know that youth are the current and the future generation. And at the same time, we believe that we youth have the very fresh perspectives, the fresh mind. But also we normally bring innovative ideas, creativity, and we are very willing to embrace the new technologies. Like even in Tanzania, we have been seeing a number of youth creating education applications so that they can at least foster education systems and learning process while we have crisis or we have challenges like the natural disasters and stuffs. Although it's still a challenge because of the technological advancement in our countries, but at least to those who are who can access those digital devices, they can at least get something that foster their learning process while we have disasters. But at the same time, in the climate issues, we have seen youth, a number of initiatives that youth are coming with very creative ways to combat climate change in our countries. Like we have a young women-led hub. It's called the Arena Recycling Hub. They do collect plastic materials through the country, and what they do is they use those plastic materials to recycle and to make different products and sell them, like the house decorations. They do sofa sets. So they have very innovative ideas that can support have good or resilient school systems in terms of climate issues, but also in the education sector. So now coming back to my question to you is, I would like to know how can you share with us what has motivated you or what has driven you as GCF to move and start doing the donation, like being the donors for education and partner to support these initiatives? What has driven you to do that, to make that decision?
Thank you so much, Salha. I think that's a very important question you raise. And obviously, if you look at that, any single activity that we are doing as a traditionally, what in GCF we are talking about the transformational changes. What is actually the paradigm pathway we are bringing? So that means how we can actually do things differently. And in that perspective, a fresh eye is always actually informative or useful, even though that may be not, helping you. But when you look at the fresh perspectives from a children or a youth, it gives you actually a little bit different dimension to understand. Just giving an example, actually, look at the youth generation. They don't actually watch any more television. They are all actually YouTube, TikTok, all those social media. And that gives us a learning as a older generation, how we actually teach our community with this new era where actually the digital transformation is happening, you're doing everything remotely. Do we provide our education like online 1 hour talk? What would be the span of the concentration? So those are the things actually we learn from our children who actually watch the 1 minute YouTube, and how actually we can change ourselves to transforming those more useful and usable and used by the community so that they can listen. And those kind of perspectives, and they're actually the next stewardship for the next generation. They will be our leader for the next generation. And those are the motivation actually help us, and how actually children and youth can actually start creating a momentum and educating others. If you start teaching to your children, they can actually go back to their community and start teaching their elder, and then parents start listening, because behavioral change is actually one of the biggest challenge into the climate change domain. We are talking about climate change adaptation, how we can actually more carbon neutral, but if you look at as an individual, we don't actually practice those. We waste so much food. We waste so much, we use so much of packaging. So how can we actually change ourselves to looking at more environmental friendly, more carbon neutral, that kind of activities. And that cannot happen because we are habituated of those kind of habits. But when actually you start teaching those in the youth generation as well as children from their school, they start building that process. And once that habit actually built on, nobody able to change that, because that's like a part of your life. And that's maybe the beauty here actually too. You should engage the youth for more within this climate domain to better create a climate action. And then finally, I'd just like to again say that, not only for the engaging this Safer School project, we try to put this programmatic approach for every other sector. Water sector, where I lead, early warning systems, because if we just go for one by one country, we cannot do this so fast. Climate change is already happening. We are already feeling it. So we need to be action right now. So if we want to do it now, we need to do it collectively. Without collective action, it's not going to happen. I think that's the major motivation drives to Green Climate Fund, to work with other funding, also to mobilize in the private sector here into the market, because the amount of money we need, nobody has those money. We are talking about trillions, but here we are actually only getting the billions. So we're going to match those financing is quite important. And that perspective is quite need to be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to hand over to Nick for some...
Thank you very much. With the microphones back on. I see the Honourable Minister Achwil has joined us, so hopefully the organisers will give us a couple of minutes to hear from the Minister. Thank you very much. We know how busy you are here and how many engagements you have. It's a great honour to have you with us. You're in a unique position, obviously, for South Sudan. You are the Minister of Education. You have your team, your department working with you. It would be great to get some of your insights or some of your thoughts on, from your perspective of the Minister, what are the sort of top priorities that you have for you and your senior team about making the education system and the schools for the children of South Sudan more resilient to the impacts of climate change in the future?
Thank you very much for the question, and sorry, I have been moving around for 1 hour, running from one meeting to another. It was very hard to get here, but finally we got to the place, so I'm sorry for that. I think climate change had a huge impact, and for us, we need to approach it in a sectoral approach, because Ministry of Education alone will not be able to address, because there are issues of cross-cutting. So first, what we did as a ministry was to have an enabling system and policies that mitigate the effect of climate change. And second, we have to improve safety and ensure education continuity despite the effect of climate change. Children will not accept to remain at home. They see the water in their schools, but they want to continue. They're standing there in this water to learn. So it's a challenge, and it also makes us that these children are resilient. So their focus is on education that will give them the tools to be able to challenge, to meet the challenges of climate change. Also reducing the school dropout rate as a result of rampant flooding and extreme drought that affect learning. So we have states that are flooded for 4 years and water is not receding. And then we have a state where completely drought continue for 4 years. So it's extreme to the extreme, and this has made impact. Children are displaced with their communities, with teachers, and they had to look for a place where they can continue to learn. So also we have learned to improving domestic financing for education, because at a certain time you build a school, it is destroyed, so you have to redo it again. So we need to improve the service of the teachers to be able to meet the challenges they have. Improvement of climate resilient school infrastructure, where you cannot, the school traditionally built were not climate resilient. So we have to review again on how to look into the school infrastructure. Ensuring disaster preparedness and risk reduction in school and school communities. When sometime when the school is built on the high ground, the whole community, when the flood comes, they will be now housed in schools. So we need to balance between how resilient will be built among the communities so that they are able also to have a safe place as well as a school. So we need to prepare our teachers, we need to prepare our communities, and even the parents themselves. So when eruption comes, then they are not vulnerable to the situation where they are affected. Ensuring adequate and reliable and timely climate information for education sector decision. If we are giving a warning earlier, then you will think to reallocate the children to the safer place, because sometimes we lose children during the floods. The flood will just wash them away, and that is very risky for going to school. So information which is not from us, from a different institution, agency, so it is important that we have that link. Also embedded climate education into our national curriculum is key, so that we prepare children at a young age and also build the capacity of the teachers on how to deliver climate resilient in the classroom. Adaptation to the multi-sectoral, as I say, approach to involve other aligned government agencies to jointly address the effect of climate change in our country, in South Sudan. So these are the major steps we are taking. We work with the Ministry of Humanitarian, we work with the Ministry of Gender, we work with so different agencies to have one approach as a government, not just bits of Ministry of General Education alone. So the team work with all these line ministries, leading what we think will help to mitigate floods and climate change. So children themselves to become a part and parcel of a process of mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that's a great way to conclude this. It's around the partnership. I mean, we're delighted to have South Sudan, Tonga, and Cambodia represented here on the panel. It will not have escaped everyone's notice that they're very different countries, different contexts in different parts of the world. And this project that we are privileged and delighted to be supporting the GPE and the GCF with in terms of delivering is not just about these three countries. You're the early movers. You're the first ministries that will be able to be part of this initiative at scale, and we very much hope and plan to be using your experiences to be able to share with other countries to develop models and ways to access climate finance, which is a very particular type of finance, to be able to channel those into ministries of education around the world to have the impact that we all want to see, making children safer in schools and make sure that they're learning. So thank you very much once again for joining us on the panel today, and indeed Sarah for doing the opening remarks. And we very much look forward to working with you all on this initiative and seeing where it goes, not only in the few years ahead, but the decades ahead. So thank you very much.
Thank you.